Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Crystal. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown podcast. And over the phone, I have the wonderful and very talented Preston Gunderson. Hello, sir.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Yes, yes. And now you are down in Minneapolis, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Minneapolis has been my home base now for the last 6 years or so.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, it must have been about 6 years ago that I had you on the show.
Yeah, it probably was. It might have even been more than 6 years ago, back when I was living in the Twin Ports. But look at this. Look at us being able to talk over the phone and do this. Technology is just amazing.
Yes, of course. Yeah, before I had you in the studio, and the microphones and analog and everything else, and now it's almost completely wireless, and I'm in my living room. So how cool is that? Definitely.
I think it's great.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Preston, I was snooping on your website. Looks like you got some good rep with is it LA Times, Minneapolis Tribune, things like that. You did come out with a new record. You have quite a few that are up on iTunes and Spotify and Amazon, things like that. But you launched a newer one. Let's jump into that one.
My last record is an EP titled "Wake Up," and that is the single from the record as well. It's a 4-track EP, and it comes along with just some. It's definitely got an upbeat feel to it. It's got some poppy kind of catchy hooks, and it's kind of one of those. I think in many ways, for me anyways, it was an album that sometimes I tend to look in the mirror and I can become a little bit melancholy with my sound as of late, but that was one where I just kind of wanted to shift the pendulum and go to the other side and do something that was fun and meaningful with some uplifting messaging.
Yeah, perfect. Let's see here. If I remember last time I think you released one album? Last we had spoken, and granted that was several years ago now, but it seems like you've kind of been a bender of releasing records lately.
Yeah, I think it's been steady. It's usually every couple of years I put something out, and occasional single here or there. But one of the things that's so interesting to me about music, and it's something that I think it kind of calls naturally to many of us. It's just something that we do, whether it's a career or not, passion, hobby, or whatever. But to have these albums out, Spotify, Apple Music, all of the digital kind of places where people listen, kind of found me in a place now where I'm just so amazed at musicians, especially now with the pandemic and everything, being able to get enough streams to provide for themselves with touring out of the question. So
Right.
That has definitely been the most difficult aspect, going from playing 150 to 175 gigs a year, and usually being from Minnesota, the summertime is the absolute busiest, and to literally have played a handful of shows, all social distanced and all, with the proper etiquette. It's just been it shows me like how difficult it can be to monetize this career through those digital markets. Because I believe you have to have 380,000 plays for you to even cut a check of like minimum wage, or something along those lines, and the 0.0037 cent per play. It's not a very unless you are a pretty successful artist, it's not really a great way to have passive income, I guess. It's kind of difficult, I guess.
Yeah. Have you been doing more kind of live streaming shows and things like that lately?
Yes, so every Thursday on my Facebook page, I've been doing quarantine sessions, if you will, and what I do every Thursday is I'll play from 8 to 9, and people can throw requests in, and then the following week I'll play them. I provide my Venmo handle and my PayPal handle. And then on top of that, I just find it really important, even in these times, to give back and do something for others. And so with the generosity of, my friends, family, and fans alike, we've been able to donate over $750 to No Kid Hungry,
Wonderful.
which is a great nonprofit feeding, hungry children in America. And then we've also given back $150 to a nonprofit here based in the Twin Cities that I used to work for, called Youth Frontiers, which is about promoting character values in schools all across America. And recently, tragically lost a childhood friend to suicide. And so the last 4 shows that I have been doing, I have been giving a fraction of all the proceeds that are donated to me. I give 25% back to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. A lot of that has just been to still do good with the music, and give back in ways that I think also fill my cup when it isn't just, because it isn't just money. Obviously, we need it to survive, but it's feeling like you're doing something in a time where I think a lot of us have felt helpless. It has been something that's kept me motivated and driven to kind of help others.
Mm-hmm. And Preston, I am sorry to hear about your friend. Very happy to hear that, you've been able to donate to these places and kind of keep their doors open as well as your own. Has that kind of always been your goal, was to give back to the community in some way?
I think, even back when I was living in Duluth and helped organize the Bridge Festival with Trampled by Turtles and a bunch of other large Minnesota bands to raise funds after the flooding back, I want to say in 2012. And, I've always just thought music has such a way of bringing people together. And I've just felt like fortunate at times and been in a position where, I'm not signed to a major label or even an indie label or anything like that, but it's always just kind of felt good no matter what kind of money I was making to give back and to, in essence, try to make the world a little bit of a better place, and to hang my hat on knowing that my music was also the contributing factor to that.
Yeah, I was, like I said earlier, I was snooping on your website a little bit, and it was either the Twin Ports Times or the LA Times. One of those newspapers had said that your music kind of spans across generations, and it's got something in it for everyone.
Yeah, and I'm not sure which article that came from. I'm not sure which writer either. I haven't updated my website in a while. But yeah, I've received some really nice words of affirmation in terms of, and like I also understand, I've been humbled in many ways, and know that, my music isn't for everybody either, and that's okay. And we can all enjoy different styles of music, and we can appreciate people's craft, and more importantly, just appreciate the person's humanity. I just respect artists so much, and that, in fact, I think one of the things that you noticed was a photo of a quote from the LA Times where it talks about musicians and their willingness to give the societal normalcy of like buying a house and a car and having the nest egg and getting married and doing all that, to kind of live for a moment and to hang on to that moment. And artists really are the voice of like generations, and you think of people like Robert Zimmerman, Bob Dylan, everything he was able to say and how profound it's been. And you look at social justice issues in our country right now, and some of the artists that are coming out, the music they're creating, music just has such a way to change the minds and hearts of people. Yeah, I guess for me, in terms of like giving back and creating art and constantly like releasing things, it's an interesting process to release something and then kind of know that it's not yours anymore, but it's collectively everybody's, because we can all kind of partake in it.
Right. And actually, speaking of collectiveness, I noticed that not on this new EP that you have, but I think on your last album, you have a song featuring the talented Jillian Ray. She's also a Minneapolis artist as well.
Yeah. Jillian's a great friend, and we both have Iron Range roots. We're both from northern Minnesota, and way long back even, Jillian was in a performance group playing her violin called the Singing Strings, and I used to travel along with them because my mom would play piano for them occasionally, so I was very familiar, and that was probably where we had first met. In doing so, the single off of my record, Getting Good at Starting Overnight, was a song that Jillian and I put together, and we had always wanted to work together, and so we did a music video for it. I'm proud of that song. I think it has a lot in terms of like relatability, and to me it was in a place where I was that I needed to kind of say, to somebody that I love, like, through the ups and downs, you're worth it. We're going to try to get through this. Even if it takes all night, we're going to things out.
Okay, all right, perfect. Well, we'll listen to that song after the interview here. Excellent. And now, Preston, you've always kind of written from the heart, written more kind of emotional side of things rather than, fiction or making up a storyline. Do you still continue to do that today?
Yeah, because I think in essence that's what draws me to music. Even sometimes when my words fail, and I've been thankful of this during quarantine, is to be able to just play my guitar, to have moments of reflection and honestly like catharsis, to sit and write about things that are personal, yet I still feel like I'm working on it. I'm working on becoming better. I'm working on being more vulnerable and honest with myself and with my audience as well. And I think oftentimes with musicians especially, it's easy to kind of idolize and pedestalize artists, and we sometimes forget that those people are human as well, and they struggle and they go through ups and downs. And so for me, I guess writing from a place that's real and authentic and is something that I think is necessary now, especially, but and maybe it's always been necessary, but I feel like for me, I'm working on it every day to be an honest and open, sincere individual when it comes to my art.
Yes, and I think that's one of the things that makes your art so gravitating, and why people really pick up on your music and really enjoy it as well. Back when you were playing up here quite a bit, I mean, you'd pack the house on a Tuesday night, and it was just really fabulous to kind of see you grow and speak your mind in a way, but really not necessarily your mind, but your heart, and kind of speak your heart through your music and the use of your voice. That was absolutely beautiful to see. I'm so glad you're still continuing on this journey. You had said, yeah, you had said a little earlier about kind of being humble and things like that. And I think what you said was kind of true, is that, we look at these bands or these artists, and we put them on a pedestal, and we think that they're amazing, and, I could go on and on and on, but then that'd take a half hour in itself. But at the end of the day, they are human. They put one leg in their pants at a time, as Mary Bew told me once. I had been talking to her. I was going to interview Alan from Low, and I was super nervous about it, just because it's Alan Sparhawk from Low. And she told me, Crystal, he puts his pants on the same way you do, one leg at a time.
Yep.
And that just kind of struck me right then and there. So that's really excellent to hear that you're kind of keeping yourself grounded and staying kind of true to your music. Where do you want this to kind of take you? I mean, are you going to keep kind of pushing forward with the tunes and kind of maybe more of the online platform? I mean, are you hoping to kind of go out on tour?
I've been fortunate in many ways to continue to pursue what I love. And, I think there's strategy involved. And I think there's a lot of things that I'm constantly learning about the music industry in particular. For me, I've really done a lot of saving these last 6 years. And I've really, really been trying to save up to a point of just making sure that all my T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and really just hit the road hard and play as much as I can and continually have content come out. I just got done doing a songwriting session with a friend of mine named Tim Nichols, he lives down in Nashville and has a few number one hits to his name. His Live Like You Were Dying by Tim McGraw and Heads Carolina, Tails California. He's in the Nashville Music Hall of Fame, and I reached out and we were writing, and it became more conversational about my path. And I think what's really important now is, especially in such a digital age and a consumer age where, oftentimes music people are paying little to nothing for, it is about content and having continuous content. And so I've been saving up to kind of create that, have a song and a video like every month for the next, year or so. And that was kind of my game plan going into this year before the pandemic happened. And so it's turned more into just like writing right now. It is, in many ways, like I was just telling somebody yesterday, I love connecting with people through music. And I think I've been missing that so much so that I just played on Thursday night outdoors on a patio for about 100 and some odd people, and it was a 3-hour show, and I decided just not to take a break because I was literally having so much fun, and it felt so fulfilling to be doing what I love in this time. And I just love to connect with people and use my medium to share that human experience. And so I'm going to continue for sure, Crystal. Like music is always going to be something in my life that, whether it be professionally or, eventually if time takes its toll and I'm no longer able to do that with the current status of the world, it's something I will always do.
Yeah, excellent. Well, and to that I say, we have the internet.
Yes.
So you will always be able to get the word out in one way or the other, or the music out, rather.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes. And Preston, you did release a newer EP. How has your music changed throughout the years? I mean, you said that you kind of tried to release albums or EPs or singles kind of throughout the last 6 years pretty steadily. How has your music flavor changed?
I mean, essentially, I think I've been releasing music since high school, which is the crazy thing. And so you can go online and listen to a record that I put out, in high school, in first year of college, and then go to where I am now. And it's kind of this cool, to me, I find it fascinating just to see the growth and whatnot. But yeah, I think in terms of how it's changed is, I think in many ways when I first started writing songs, I wasn't sure what my voice was. And what I mean by that is not like my singing voice, but what did I have to say and why was I creating music? And initially, I think I did it in a way that was, I just wanted it to kind of be fun. I wanted to write love songs. I wasn't really thinking too much about what I was saying. I was just creating because it felt good. Whereas now, I kind of ask myself when I'm writing a song, and maybe this has merit, maybe it doesn't, but I sometimes ask myself, is what I'm saying important? And to that effect, is it important? Will it mean something to someone? To be open and vulnerable about your own, whether it's insecurities or heartbreak or shortcomings. I think a lot of people can dive into those things. For example, on a record called Face Yourself Then the World, I have quite a few songs on that EP in terms of really facing yourself because I think sometimes that is the harshest critic will ever kind of run into, is being really hard on oneself. And so I think it's changed just in the way of, yes, how I'm seeing the world, but also how I'm seeing myself, and my stories and my experience also help somebody else maybe going through something similarly.
Yes. And I took a writing class back in college, and it said, or they said rather, write about what you know and write from the heart. Because
Right.
if it's fake, people can usually tell. And he
Yeah.
didn't mean fake as in fiction. He meant, fake as in you've never experienced it before, or, you're making it off the cuff and it has no truth to it whatsoever.
Right.
So that really struck with me. And I think it comes out in your music too. I think that's why people really, like I said earlier, gravitate to it and really gel with it a lot. It's just because of your openness and your honesty, and I think that's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much, Preston, for sharing your heart with the world.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you to the world for accepting a human being with, his own fallacies and shortcomings, and knowing that, no one's perfect, but we can still support each other and still make the world a better place.
Yeah, yeah. And this kind of goes along with the question I asked earlier, but has that always been kind of your end goal, is to be in that community, be in kind of a, not to be in a community, but to have a sense of community and to kind of write from the heart and to realize that, yes, I am human, here I am. Has that always kind of been your goal with your music?
Yeah, I think it's evolved in some ways. I think initially when I was a kid and had, stars in my eyes and,
Yeah.
Wanted to make this a career, I kind of, I grew up in a smaller town on the Iron Range in northern Minnesota, and I kind of just thought that, excuse me, there were only certain ways to actually make it work. Like, I felt like you had to be maybe a larger than life persona, or you had to be a savant of sorts. But I guess through my own journey, and the writers and the musicians that I have really fallen in love with are the people who have said so much with so little, and had this economy of words and have been open and honest. And to me, I think that's also about like your fan base and your support system too, is like letting them get a sneak peek behind the curtain at who that person really is. I appreciate that. And I know I can't speak for everyone, but to be authentic and to be oneself is truly like a remarkable feat in today's world, where, you're constantly barraged with subtle ways of like being told you're not good enough. And if it's like any consolation of the sorts to be able to tell people they are good enough, even with their shortcomings or anything, like, people make mistakes, it doesn't matter. Like, we are inherently human and we have value, and ultimately reminding people that they matter with that music is really important to me now, probably more so than when I first started.
Right. It seems like you've kind of grown into that, and in a way grown into yourself as well. It's very cool that you've cataloged your music going all the way back to your high school years. So what was high school Preston like? I mean, you alluded to it a little earlier, that you had stars in your eyes and things like that. I mean, did you have aspirations of Hollywood and things, or has it always kind of been a down-to-earth grassroots kind of effort?
I think my first gigs, like solo gig in a bar in northern Minnesota, was when I was 15, but I knew from a very early age, when I was about 3.5, 4 years old, I performed in my mother's piano recital, and I think literally like the foundation of my life was like created right there, in knowing that I would want to do music. But in high school, I grew up in a smaller town, kind of sheltered from the world, and I would say that I was always, loving and accepting, but I will say that just like with age comes wisdom, so does seeing the world and meeting different people. And I've been fortunate to live in Ireland and study overseas and travel, and I've been to most states in our country and doing music and connecting with people. And in the UK, I've made a trip over there as well and played music there. And these are moments where it's almost like Trevor Noah had a saying that traveling is the cure to ignorance. And to me, all of those things had helped grow my perspective, and helped me grow as an individual. And so I wasn't as well traveled. I didn't know as much growing up. I was one of those kids from a small town that, thought that going to Duluth was the big city. And, it's silly to me now, but I just wonder how many people are, like me, that 16-year-old kid that had the big stars in his eyes that only thought there was one way to do it. And now, 15 years later, realize that, I have made a career of doing music, and give or take, if you want to call it successful or not, I've been able to provide for myself and hopefully give back to others. And that, in essence, in many ways, should be counted as success.
Of course. And, I remember a quote, you can't measure someone else's success. Which is absolutely wonderful quote, because someone else's success may not be your success. There's not just one path to success, and there's not just
there's no formula that's,
exactly
that everybody can use that works for them. Some people are fulfilled through money or fame or whatever, but other people can give or take on that stuff. And so I agree with you 100%. I like that quote.
All right. Excellent, Preston. Excellent. Let's switch gears here a little bit. So in these EPs and in these albums that you have you done it kind of more DIY, kind of grassroots at a home studio, or have you gone into a big studio to make them happen?
One of the frameworks for me in terms of creating is I'll be the first to admit, technologically, I'm not super advanced in my knowledge there. And so it's definitely like relationally, in terms of like, I work with friends and people who have incredible talents, whether it is audio engineers or, other musicians. But a lot of like my writing obviously comes fundamentally just from me sitting in my living room playing, guitar and focusing on an idea. But as of late, I've been challenging myself to co-write with others, to also be open to get out of my own proverbial box and maybe even try something new or explore that realm, because I don't do it a whole lot. But a lot of my records have been made in professional studios of sorts, where I've either hired, friends of mine who are audio engineers to go in and record it in that particular space, or have worked with them in the past. The Wake Up album was engineered and produced by a friend of mine named John Herkert, who's also a fabulous musician, and was in a band here in the Minneapolis scene called Mango Jam, which had some pretty good success back in the 90s. And he's recorded some really wonderful and talented artists, people who have gone on to sign major record deals. And he's incredible at what he does, too. So it was like a privilege for me to learn and to hear his ideas and sit in that space. And also, it's a collaborative thing once you start working on a song, and ego is like the first thing to really kind of hurt you, I think. And so trying to walk into it with humility and understanding that there is a vision and that you can work with somebody and their ideas and you can find middle ground is really kind of this beautiful way to craft a song.
Wise words, Preston. Very excellent. I am full on board with everything that you said. Jumping into kind of more your collaborative works, is there anything that you're going to kind of launch out? Are you going to do any online streaming shows with some collaborators in the future?
Yeah, actually, funny you should ask. Next Thursday, this upcoming Thursday, my mom is a professional musician, and so I'm gonna make the journey home and do my weekly live stream with my mother, and once again, for donations, and then 25% of the proceeds will go to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to that. Collaboratively, I've also been doing some songwriting sessions with friends of mine. Like I had mentioned, Tim Nichols, my friend James, and his wonderful wife, Julia Sheely from Atlanta. I was on The Voice with James back when I was 21 years of age, and so we connected and worked on a song that I'm really proud of, and just continually trying to connect with people who are still avid songwriters, and it's been really a fun process too, just to see how everybody's brains work a little bit different. And as I said earlier, it's been humbling to just to know so many talented people. It's kind of, I feel very fortunate.
Excellent, Preston, excellent. And earlier I was trying to remember if it was American Idol or The Voice that you had been a contestant on, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember. But now, of course, I don't really watch TV that much.
Yeah. Well, you could have picked either, because I ended up doing both.
You did? Okay. All right, then. Can we dive into that a little bit, just in case people or myself, rather, are interested in what was your time like being kind of on those shows? Now, I've always heard that they kind of get everybody into a room or get contestants that sing kind of similarly and have them just go hog wild, and then they just kind of pick somebody from there. I mean, what was your experience like?
Well, my experience with The Voice was pretty interesting. Being younger and I would say a little bit
naive.
Yeah, I think that's a great word for it. Just naive in what to expect. I flew out to California, and it was funny because when I signed up for it, I just did the online sign up, and I remember they called me and they were like, "Hey, we'd love to have you come out, be a part of The Voice this year." And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." They're like, "Do you have an airport you want to get picked up at?" And I was like, Hibbing? And they were like, "Okay, Minneapolis." And so they flew me out, and one of the things I'm always reminded of about that time is just, once again, I mean, there's so many talented people out there, and so that was like that first moment of just realizing, like, wow, you may be like talented wherever you are, but there's always some other people out there that are just as incredible, and so that was really a nice lesson to learn. But yeah, it was a lot of behind the scenes things, from what to wear, like doing wardrobe, to what song you get to sing based on licensing and things like that. Overall, I had a great experience, but it didn't go the way I wanted. Obviously, I didn't become like a full-time contestant on the show, and didn't, get on a team or anything like that. Shortly after that, one of the producers it was Peter, had switched companies and was working with American Idol, and he had reached out to me personally and had asked me to try out for American Idol. And at this point, I was kind of like not about it, because I just kind of felt, I don't know, I was left with a bad taste in my mouth. But he talked me into it, and I did that, and then was on TV for a little bit, and ultimately was once again told no. And, I guess a lot of my learning through that process was that whether you have a celebrity telling you you're good enough or not, like, you can still do what you love. And I have stuck to that. And there's a Japanese proverb about you fall down 7 times, stand up 8. I truly believe that with music, talent isn't the only thing that will get you anywhere. There's nothing more common than unsuccessful people with talent. Mm-hmm. Education won't. I mean, there's a lot of educated derelicts out there, mm-hmm. but truly, like, the one thing that is omnipotent is persistence. Mm-hmm. And your willingness to continue to fail and to continue to be told no, and to be continued to kind of, have people say, hey, well, what do you do for a living? And say a musician, and then have them say, well, what do you really do? To kind of constantly have these battles, it is exhausting and fatiguing. And, ultimately you do it because you love it. So for me, the persistence is so key. And what I learned even from those shows, with the good and the bad from those shows, was, even with that little glimpse of the television, like, my support had gone through the roof with that slight little thing. But, it's been amazing to still see how supportive people have been to me without any of these accolades or, pursuit of fame, acknowledgement type things. And I'm grateful for that, honestly. With those shows, I learned a lot. I made great connections. I had done a couple national tours with a great friend of mine, Tony Lair of the band Family 3 down here. We went out and did West Coast, East Coast, Central America, by Central America, I mean Central United States. And we met up with a bunch of people that I had been on shows with and whatever. And I think that was one of the things that I took away from it the most, was those connections and finding people who are talented and passionate just like me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing about your time on television. I've always kind of been curious about that realm. I've heard quite a few negative things about it rather than the positive, like I had alluded to earlier, but it doesn't sound like it was all bad for you.
No, and I mean, I think anytime you're faced with a situation, I have a tendency to do this. It's like finding silver linings sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's can be a positive thing. At least it is for me. Mm-hmm. But I won't hide the fact that I was really saddened by this, because here I was, a dreamer, hoping to capture my dream and thinking that I'm so close to it, and then ultimately failing. But it's like, I think there's a Michael Jordan quote where he said, the reason why I succeeded is because I failed thousands and thousands of times, and you have to be willing to do that. So.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I've heard, quotes like that from almost everyone that I've ever talked to that does music, even writers, painters, all those types of things. It's the perseverance that sees you through. And Preston, that's great that you have that perseverance and that you have that drive. And look at you now. I mean, hundreds of songs later and a huge fan base. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks, Krista. That means a lot. And I'm grateful to be here chatting with you about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. All right. So coming up for you, you've got a show up north here with your mom as a guest. Anything else kind of happening in your world? I mean, I know you said you kind of took a hiatus out. Especially with the way things are going now. To just kind of write music and get back into the groove of things. Every Thursday you do kind of a live streaming show. Anything else in your sights?
Yeah, occasionally I get the privilege to be a part of different events, and there's a celebration of life for Mitch Thune down at the Le Sueur Golf Club that I play each year in his memory, and that's coming up this August 17th. And then I'm also playing a small wedding gathering, which obviously, these aren't necessarily public shows, but it is kind of an interesting time where I haven't been able to do kind of the standard shows that I would normally be doing. Mm-hmm. It has been tough, and I think as we start to understand, the coronavirus and hopefully develop a vaccine and hopefully get back to a sort of normalcy where music and people can gather. Like I said, I've been saving up to hit the road and play more and deliver content each and every month and try to be more on top of those things. So this has really been like a cocoon phase for that. A lot of writing, a lot of reading, a lot of, trying new things out in terms of musically and just trying to maybe find something new, a diamond in the rough.
Right, a diamond in the rough, or salt of the earth.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It can go both ways if we're spitting out quotes here. You had alluded to earlier that you're not really signed on with a label or you don't really have an agent or anything like that. Are you still pretty DIY then?
I do, all the booking, all the promotion, all the the calendar, everything, the producer in terms of a billfold as well. It's kind of a do-it-yourself kind of thing, and so you have to be a self-starter and be hungry, but even in this weird condition of like incredibly difficult, not just on artists, but also small businesses and venues, as you've probably seen. It's really, really difficult for them as well. And so just trying to find ways to make a living doing what you love right now, unless you're a, top 1%er of artists, those huge mainstream ones, where you get a lot more per play on Spotify. It's trying to find new creative ways to generate revenue and interest, especially with people being home and knowing that it's hard for other people too, as well, and that a lot of people have lost income and jobs and maybe struggling to keep a roof over their heads. So it's always with humility. I don't charge people a cover or whatever for a live stream or anything. It's just strictly donation, because that has also developed into something that's been really therapeutic for me, and to talk with people every Thursday and learn new songs. And it's been humbling to know that people will take an hour out of their evening to come hang out with me every Thursday.
All right, perfect, Preston, perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me and the wider world at large here. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your insight. We'll listen to a couple of your beautiful tracks here as soon as I let you go. But thank you so much. And thank you for being a light in the world today. I look forward to what you've got coming out in the future. I look forward to your collaborations. And I'll probably see you on Thursday.
Hey, that sounds really great. Thank you so much for having me. And I guess if I could just say one final message, is just anyone listening, if things are hard right now or you're struggling, ultimately that you are loved and you're cared about. Reach out for help if you need it.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Could not agree more. Preston, thank you so much, sir. Have a beautiful, wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you. You too, Crystal.
Bye.
Bye.
Here I am, I am yours. I've held you close through the roughest of storms, but I know this won't be our last. This world is spinning so fast. Although the words are hard to find, I'm gonna keep on trying. This love, it ain't easy, it's far from dying. We're gonna get this right, even if it takes so long.